Ladies and gentlemen.
Everybody wants the prize, but nobody wants to pay the price.
Can they be pushed? Do they have a sense of urgency? Do they want to be great?
And then, of course, you look at them and be like, yeah, right.
Everybody wants to be on your team when you're on top.
I saw the angel and the marble, and I carved until I set him free.
Go be somebody, bro.
But the most important part of the Be Somebody journey is the resilience.
Welcome to the Be Somebody Podcast, your real and raw destination for all things entrepreneurship, leadership, and culture, with your host, Kash Shaikh, and our CEO and founder of Be Somebody Inc. and BSB Group International, Kash Shaikh. Welcome to episode 4 of the Be Somebody Podcast. Shout out to all of our listeners to previous episodes, and mad love to all of our subscribers. I'm your co-host, Kash Shaikh, with our founder and CEO of Be Somebody Inc. and BSB Group International, Kash. What's going on, Kash?
What's going on, man? I always get pumped hearing you open the show, man. It's always good, and I'm so just grateful for everybody that's been downloading, subscribing to all the shows. We got 3 shows. Yep. In the books. The listenership keeps growing, man. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Episode 4. We're back in it now. Kash, I haven't had much time, haven't had much interaction with you with all the social distancing. This is like our only time we get you.
We're like 5.5 feet. We're 6 inches too close, man. So, it's been crazy because we have such a close-knit culture and we're so used to being around each other. It's definitely been a transition to go to this virtual kind of environment. It's weird because I haven't seen you, but I've been seeing you like 6 times a day on like Slack calls and Google Hangouts. So it's just this weird hybrid time of being connected, but not being like in touch with each other.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the video calls help us stay connected, but that human interaction, that face to face is so important.
I've noticed on these Google Hangouts and these like Zoom calls and Slack calls is that you can really like start to see who on the team is like really engaged and who isn't. Especially because our office has been designated an essential workplace. So I've been still coming in. We've been helping some of our healthcare companies, grocery companies on the front lines with different things. We're really grateful and blessed to be able to do that. Some other folks have been coming in, guys are in the room that have been coming in. But when you're on in the conference room there, we got that, pretty big TV. What is it, Herbie? Like
it's 65,
65 inch, so you can see everybody and you got people. Yeah. You can see people looking to the side. I see people like falling asleep on the call,
kids running in,
which is kind of funny. I think Jill and her team had her cat like right next to her screen for a good like 20 minutes of our call. So, but for me, I always like to have the team in the room, especially in our full team meetings, to get that eye contact and really feel that energy. And you can't really feel the energy on the call. That's what I hate. You can't feel the energy of the room. Right. You don't really have the eye contact. But because the person doesn't think that you're watching them, you can catch people, doing weird things. And, so that's been interesting.
Yeah.
Got to be more careful what I think I do on there, like not taking drinks of water and maybe a little snack in the morning. So now I know you're watching us.
Yeah, I always see you, man, like brushing your teeth on the call.
Thought you couldn't see that, but all right.
But in all seriousness, I mean, obviously we're in, I don't even know what week we're in of coronavirus, stay at home. I mean, it's been weeks and weeks and it's been extended to the end of April, and we were out with some government and healthcare workers earlier in the week, and they're saying it might be through May. Nobody knows. We mentioned last episode all these companies. We listed off these companies that were laying off people. I think some of you guys know this, but Marriott International, one of our big partners, we've been saying 103 days at Marriott Bonvoy hotels last year. They're laying off tens of thousands of employees. Cirque du Soleil laying off 95% of their workforce. GE announced that they're laying off 2,500 employees in their aviation unit, and about 50% of them, of additional employees in the maintenance and repair group, are being furloughed. Macy's is furloughing most of their 125,000 employees, and retail, Macy's in particular, they're already honestly struggling a bit. And in this day and age, in this environment, and I don't know how they're going to rebound from that. They're a Cincinnati-based company. We're based in Cincinnati, as you guys know. Norwegian Airlines becomes the latest airlines to announce they're laying off 90% of their workforce. ZipRecruiter laid off 443 employees, and I remember that was just a couple days after they said that they were trying to sell. And if you think about it from an entrepreneurship startup climate, whether you're trying to exit or you're trying to raise capital. I mean, it's just an awful time right now because nobody wants to be spending money. Nobody wants to be investing money because no one knows what's going to happen. And then lastly, ClassPass laid off or furloughed about half of their company. And you guys know ClassPass is the platform to book for gyms and studios and things like that. Right. And obviously all the gyms are closed. Yeah. So you start thinking, okay, well, gyms are closed. But honestly, I didn't necessarily think, well, what about all those platforms, those companies that leverage the gym and fitness space? They're all hurting. Yep. You know, we talked with one of our partners that's a protein company that is suffering because one of their biggest channels was CrossFit gyms and personally owned gyms. Right. Open Table, I think we talked about it maybe last time too. 98% of bookings vanished on Open Table. That whole platform is based on the restaurant industry. Well, no restaurants are open. So it's just, it's crazy. It's disappointing. I know we're going to come back from it, but I just feel for the people that are suffering right now.
Really unfortunate to hear a lot of that. But let's switch it to a little bit more positive news. Right. Let's talk a little bit.
We got a great guest today. Yeah, we've got a great guest today. I've been so excited about because this is someone I'm truly inspired by in terms of what she has done as a leader for years across some of the best and biggest companies, most inspiring companies in the world. I know, Vikas, you're going to talk about the breadth of her career, but to me, what's been fascinating is not only what she's doing now, because she left a lot behind to pursue her passion, which I can identify and appreciate. She's been around and been in leadership positions during some of the most pressing crises of our time. I mean, she was in Asia during SARS. And when it was like 2002, she was leading as a CEO during the financial crisis in 2009. And so I'm just really excited to talk to this amazing leader to see how she's planning to deal with this latest crisis and how we can learn from her.
Yeah.
So Vikas, do what you do.
All right, please welcome to the show a leader who spent 20 years on Starbucks, CEO of Lululemon from 2008 to 2014, and CEO now of Performance Kitchen, formerly known as Luvo, and also named one of Fortune magazine's top 5 international most powerful women. Please welcome Christine Day. Nap, we got her on the line?
She's on the line.
Hey, Christine.
Hi, how are you?
Because you said 20 years on Starbucks, so I was thinking, is Christine like the face on that on the cup?
She's the mermaid.
Christine is the mermaid. Christine, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so pleased to be with you guys. And hey, I could go through that announcement every day.
Exactly, right? It gets you pumped up. Like that's
we'll send you the recording.
Sometimes when I'm feeling like a little down, a little depressed, I call Vikas. I'm like, man, just give me my intro. I want to hear my intro. But Christine, so I know we have a lot to talk about, so I want to just dive in. But before we kind of get into everything that's happening today, I would love for you to share a little bit about your journey. Vikas talked about your career at Starbucks and Lululemon and now at Performance Kitchen, but just would love to hear you share your background and kind of how you've moved from one point to the next.
Well, I actually started out in private equity, and that was how I met Howard Schultz. And so I did his first 3 equity raises and came inside the company. And then, it was really just, even then, just being so amazed by his passion and the type and purpose and the type of company he wanted to build. And that really was what hooked me. And I think really shaped a lot of my management philosophy, was working for somebody who was really out to change the world through a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, I've really learned that innovating on purpose is really what my whole career has been about, and following great people and building great teams, but always doing the right thing and building on what I call the values economic chain instead of the economic value chain, which is a theory of dominance, if you remember that from business school. But and it's about creating value for every segment of who you work with, and that's really what I'm probably proudest of in my whole career is having learned how to do that and share that with others and pass it on, and that's why I take the time to do things like your podcast, is just to share what I've learned in my journey along the way.
That's awesome. And we always talk about, how important leadership is, passionate leadership, inspirational leadership, and values-driven leadership. And when you talk about how you were drawn to Howard Schultz, what's the one biggest thing that you learned from him that you've taken into your own arsenal as a leader?
I think it's really that purpose has the power of engagement, and that vision. And when you have that purpose, and you have people engaged on the purpose, that it's not a job, right, that people come to every day. It's really a mission, and they go beyond job descriptions when they feel like they're contributing. But, there were other great leaders at Starbucks, Orrin Smith, who I learned so much about strategy and how to build, long-term plans that create the future you want to create, and create healthy business models. And Howard Behar, who, was such a people leader. I mean, Howard gets a lot of the credit, Schultz, but Howard Behar really was a lot of the heart and soul at Starbucks. And then great operators. I mean, so I was just fortunate to be surrounded by so many great leaders, and taking a little bit of each of what I saw that was great, and bringing that into my own leadership style.
It's funny. We were just talking about this before we got on air, because I was kind of breathing a little fire to my team, and I'm like, sometimes you got to like breathe a little fire as a leader. We want to be inspirational, we want to be purpose driven, but sometimes you got to like let the dragon come out to get things in motion. Yeah. But what about you? I mean, how would you describe your leadership style?
I think first and foremost, it is about purpose and vision. Second of all, it's about building a great team, and that comes from people, really looking for people who have built things, not just managed things. They have a different perspective, and people who can go from strategy to the micro detail, about really have a passion that really know what their business is. One of the things that I really am is a student of business, and when I took over at Lululemon, the first thing I did was work with a group that I still work with today, ICR. And I asked Joe Tecklitz at the time to build me a model of all the 50 top great retail stories and, the 20 worst, and then looked at for the patterns of what made great business. So while I'm very purpose-led, I'm also very disciplined and a student of good business models. And great teams. And I had to learn I think probably my biggest lesson as a leader was going from being an individual contributor to learning how to really engage and let other people contribute and create the space for them to perform. So that's really something that I evolved into, that I think is a big part of my leadership now. But like you said, there's times to be the hero, and then there's times to be the servant leader. And you can't just be one of those. You really have to be both. And you have to have the discipline to set the guardrails for when the contributions of the team aren't going in the direction that the vision needs to go. And you've got to manage to performance. So I think people would tell you I'm a tough performance driver as much as anything else. But I know the business that I'm in. I'm a great student of it. And then, I really go to bat for my team. And I think I'm a calm leader. Most people would tell you that they very rarely heard me use my voice or raise my voice. They do hear me swear, but they don't hear me raise my voice very often. I don't get too excited. I
need to learn that skill, because we need to take Christine's masterclass on not raising voices, because we yell every once in a while, Christine, but we also do swear too. So we do have that in common. So when we talk about, your move from Lulu to Luvo Foods and now Performance Kitchen, I know that when we had talked before, there is a lot of personal passion, a lot of personal connection that led you to that move. So I'd love to hear about, what inspired you to make that jump and kind of how things are going now. And also just would be great for you to share with our listeners, what Performance Kitchen is, where you guys are going, how you guys are driving innovation in the space.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always had a health and wellness bent to everything I've done. I've loved food and cooking and had a huge interest in it. But what really tipped me over the edge was my mother, due to a pancreatic illness, ended up with type 2 diabetes. And at the end stage of that, after 25 years, unfortunately went through limb loss and then ultimately dialysis. And during the end stage of that journey, particularly after limb loss, going to the grocery store and trying to find food that actually met the doctor's orders, which wasn't too complicated, right? It was things like reduced sodium, high in protein, low sugar, and carbs. And, went to the grocery store all with my dad to, help him out, because the food hadn't come off a barbecue. He really didn't know what to, do. So I was shocked to see that there was nothing in the prepared food aisles that actually met the standards. Everything was too high in sodium, too high in sugars, not clean. Even the natural aisle, though, it was white pastas with high sodium sauces and no vegetables in dishes that were called vegetarian. And so my mom needed a lot of fiber and protein. So I was shocked. And so I started looking into it, and I found a little company that was, starting to do things based on nutrition. It was pretty small at the time with the founder, and he came to me and asked for both advice and an investment. So I made an investment along with some other high net worth individuals. And unfortunately, he didn't really know what he was doing. And this industry, as you know, is tough.
Right.
And so the company ended up in trouble. And so I was asked to step in, and it's taken me 5 years to put the business model together. It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
So that was 2015 when you stepped in?
Yeah. Let's see. Was that right? 2014, 2015, right around in there. Yeah. So, it's been, and then it became an obsession and a passion to fix this issue. The more I learned about it, and with some great teachers and educators along the way about, the problem and what was needed to fix it. And so, so it's been the journey and a great team. And, now we're finally on the verge of really delivering on everything that I set out to do in the early days.
We talked about a little bit, and Vikas and I were talking about it, that we never really looked at frozen foods as healthy or that they had the potential to be healthy until we really started working a lot with grocery partners. And, our company on the consulting side, on the BSB side, as you know, works with some of the largest retailers in the country. And we started saying, hey, actually, like frozen foods, like we have to re-envision our old kind of misconceptions about frozen foods, because there's this concept of fresh frozen and better for you choices that are now out there. And that's some of the work that you and the Performance Kitchen team are really leading right now.
Absolutely. What most people don't realize is like the nutrition life of something like the pea, for instance, is actually 6 days. And so much of our produce that's actually perfectly peak ripeness is actually left on the field because it's actually the less ripe product that actually goes through the system and can survive going through the distribution and manufacturing system. So, getting peak produce and flash freezing it is actually one of the best ways to preserve nutrition in products. And so that's what a lot of people don't know. And there's no reason to put high sodium or chemicals in food that's frozen. And, one of the things I'm proudest about in our Performance Kitchen line, which we do, crafted line, which we do in small batch production, we actually have no emulsifiers, no chemicals, dyes, preservatives, nothing in it. It's just whole food cooked the way you would, and then flash frozen. And then because we do small line production, we don't even need to use emulsifiers. And so it's some of the cleanest food that you could have out there. And so I think that's really just understanding how the business works and how we can create clean product is something that we've really studied and I'm really proud to bring to market.
With everything that all of us are experiencing with coronavirus, with the stay-at-home orders, with some of the stockpiling of food, we were just reading an article that said frozen foods are experiencing one of the largest gains in sales that they've had in the last decade, especially whether it's bigger brands, smaller brands, because people are stocking up because they want shelf-stable items in their pantry. How's the business been during this crisis? Have you been insulated from it? Have you been able to? Are you on the growth side? Where is Performance Kitchen?
Well, I would say a mixed bag. Definitely, we saw the pantry, buying surge that a lot of the frozen food groups have, and so saw some really strong results towards the end of the first quarter, and reorders that are happening, refill orders that are happening right now. But we also know we left a lot of business on the shelf because the grocery stores couldn't stock fast enough and keep the aisles full. And I think we're, all a little anxious about what happens now that people's cupboards are full and if unemployment starts to surge. So I think there's a little trepidation about what happens in the coming months. But I think the hardest thing for us was we do food for Delta Airlines. We do the wraps and we do their oatmeal in first class.
That's right. I think everyone in this room has enjoyed those meals on Delta.
Yep.
We have.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Really proud of the work we've done with them in helping them get to number 1 and 2 in food by the Diet Detective because of the work we've done on nutrition there and really reduced their sodium. So it was tough to basically have all of those purchase orders canceled because Delta's just not flying. So that was a hit to the business. And in a small business like ours, that cash flow is really important. So that was a bit tough. And then I think the other thing for us is we have some really great strategic initiatives we're doing in the food as medicine space that we were dependent on some of the resets that are occurring that are now, the grocery stores are just in chaos. So a lot of this
everybody's on pause.
Kind of on hold. Yeah. So I think that's, but at the same time, what I also see is more than ever, the consumer understands immunity health. And, one of the things COVID-19 has brought out is if you have diabetes, you're more at risk of having a severe illness based off of this. So treating, getting your diet under control and having your medicine be more effective because you're eating the right things is more important than ever. And, some of our big grocery partners are really working on obesity and diabetes programs. And we have the type of meals that are suited for that. For instance, all of our Performance Kitchen line is approved by the American Diabetes Association. And not everybody can say that about their meals. And so anything, that you're choosing from us, we're helping you with that. And so, we think those are really important things that the consumer is now starting to really understand. Right. And I think it will transform the marketplace, and brands like ours will see, I think, a prolonged upswing coming out of this.
Exactly. I mean, we were actually talking about that as well, is that there's a heightened awareness of wellness and immunity. And if there is a silver lining, we believe there's a silver lining, and there's a lot, as you know, as someone who's kind of navigated multiple crises and points in time, like one of the biggest silver linings I really believe that's going to come out of this is that people are going to demand more better for you options in the grocery store. They're going to demand to know what's in their foods, and they're going to want more of those whole foods. They're going to want to understand how they can boost their own immunity.
Yeah, because the other thing about, keys to immunity health are getting all the right nutrients and gut health, right? And that takes 5 to 9 vegetable servings a day and the right amounts of fiber. So, just things like managing your gut health for immunity, making sure that you have all the essential vitamins and minerals in your daily diet. And clean food is where we've been. So the organic, natural, taking bad stuff out, and managing a clean supply chain is definitely healthier than where we were before. But it's actually about getting now the right profiles of healthy fats, getting, daily greens for nitric oxide for vascular health in your diet every day. We sneak greens into everything we do for that reason, and make sure that we have a good, excellent source of fiber, through either whole grains and vegetables, making sure that we have clean proteins. all these things are going to be so important as people start to learn more. And that's what I'm excited about. I think this last 2 years, we've seen the market shift from going beyond organic and non-GMO and into true nutrition. We've seen sodium levels come down. We've seen sugar levels start to come down. But that's just the basics. A lot of people don't know that one of the major contributors to obesity is something called fatty acid imbalance, which is your ratio of omega 3s to 6s. And that should be 1 to 4 for the average person. But we consume in America 1 to 20, which means that the excess omega 6s actually get stored as fat. So, if that's just eating the wrong oils. So there's so much to know. And where I want Performance Kitchen to be is that we become the trusted brand that people understand. We've gone deep on the science of nutrition and how your body processes sugar so there's no insulin spikes. What are the right healthy fats and all the things that are too hard to understand. If you just pick up a box of Performance Kitchen, we've covered it all.
We've been kind of trying to be on the front lines of the food as medicine movement for the last few years with one of our partners, Kroger, and some other partners we work in the food space. And it's been interesting as I've been watching it, because I think there's been this juxtaposition where everybody knows that food can be a strong enabler on the preventative side of healthcare, if we can help prevent disease before it starts. But I've also heard the other side of the debate where people say, hey, that food as medicine concept, it's for the haves, not the have-nots. It's almost this elitist concept. And I think the struggle has always been for these big retailers to understand that actually this is relevant for everybody. And like we said, now coming out of this pandemic, we really believe, I know you do, we all believe that people are going to be demanding it. But how are we going to enable everyone to have access to these healthier foods, whether it's fresh foods, fresh frozen?
Yeah, and I think frozen plays a big role in that. When you look at our Performance Kitchen line, which is the line we do with the manufacturer that's in 10,000 grocery stores today, that line is all American Diabetes Association approved. And you can find it on sale, 2 for $6. And, I think
awesome.
That's why we have 2 lines. We have that line, which is very reasonably priced. And the future we see, because we qualify as a medically tailored meal today, is you start to see the insurance companies are starting to deal with both food insecurity and moving down the curve of going into reimbursable food meals for things like diabetes. So if you could get a meal for $3 that was subsidized by your insurance company at even $1.50 off, that makes it extremely affordable for low-income families that suffer from these challenges. And our goal is to put the right types of foods out there that making your familiar favorites affordable. So, we're working on a line of soul foods right now, because we know that that's something that's really important in the South. We're introducing a line in the Southwest. So,
that sounds good.
And so I think it's just getting the things that people want to eat.
With the onset of coronavirus, food insecurity is higher than ever. 33% of people that are going to food banks now were not there or had never been there before. Wow. So a third of the people are newly thrust into this need. So food insecurity has become a massive issue. And I think that, I love that you guys are offering options at a price point that enables access for a lot of people.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that our Performance Kitchen crafted line is higher priced at $10, but they're larger serving. And they come in, so, be, for instance, 340 to 400 grams of food compared to 252 grams of food in your average frozen meal on the frozen aisle. But because in that line, we have really gone deep. We have 150 items that qualify as medically tailored meals that deal with everything from the keto low carb, as you have to call it carb wise, because of, if you put a meat product in it with the USDA, you can't use the word keto. But we have low FODMAP, we have maternity bundles, we have a full Mediterranean line, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, allergen-free. pretty much any specialty eating that you need, we've done. But at the same time, like if I think about my dad now, who's by himself and eating, and so it's full of things like, pot roast and shepherd's pie and, pork Dijon and, all the things that I know my dad would eat. So broad appeal, just making, again, your familiar favorites healthy and with whole foods.
Herbie, what's the misconception or perception that people have when we start talking about healthy foods? What do they think about the food?
Tasteless.
Yeah, exactly. So Christine, how does the food taste? How does the soul food taste? How does it all taste?
I'm getting hungry hearing these descriptions, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll tell you, it can still be delicious. And here's a couple of the number 1, 2, 3 ways that we do it. By putting the right healthy fats in the food, that carries the flavor and the mouthfeel. Then we really focus on real, authentic spices and herbs as opposed to just salt and sugar. So you get a more complex, full-bodied mouthfeel when you eat our food versus like really kind of almost like the sharp flavors you get from just chemicals, sodium, and sugar. And so I would put up our meals against anybody's. And yet we have a third oftentimes of the sodium that somebody else does. And
That's
we
great.
use real fruit. We use real vegetables. So like our roasted cauliflower mac and cheese has a butternut squash puree in it for hidden veggies and a little cayenne pepper to give it a little bit of zing. But the sodium is less than 400 milligrams in that dish.
I just can't wait to come out with the French fry only frozen food because that's going to be mine. But Christine, just shifting gears now. I mean, we talked about a little bit, during your introduction, but you've had the opportunity, the responsibility, the challenge to be in leadership positions during some pretty big crises, like we talked about SARS, being in Asia that time, the financial crisis. Would love to hear kind of your perspective of what you learned during those times and how that's helping you navigate this current pandemic that we're in today.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly I think what I'm seeing even among some of my CEO peers and myself is when we've been through this not obviously this one, and it's a double-edged sword here with both a pandemic and a financial crisis.
Right.
But having been through crises before, it's so important to hold the vision for what the future can look like and take the actions that you need to take now to ensure the survival of the company and the care of your people and your customers. But really the long view helps. And that perspective of resiliency and the path forward and the view to what the possibilities are coming out the other side is so critical to keeping your team engaged. And it's tough to make tough decisions, and then it's also supporting your customers, doing the right thing. We just donated, this last week in the Seattle area, we donated almost 3,000 meals. We're about to make another donation this coming week with another one of our ambassadors. We just did the last one with Russell Wilson, his wife Sierra, and we'll work with another one of our ambassadors to do another donation to food banks. So, doing the right thing for your communities. We're doing discounts for healthcare workers in our Seattle market right now as well. So that they can have, meals on the table and, delivered to their families and or themselves, deliveries to fire stations. So, taking care of your community is important. Making the tough calls for your business. It is tough to lay people off, but, if you don't take some of the actions you need to, if you have a lot of cash on your balance sheet, like a Starbucks does or a Lulu does, doing what they're doing, which is taking care of their employees and continuing to pay them, is also, a huge contribution to society. So,
right.
And that gives their employees a lot of security. So it's that ability to kind of step back and not get into overreaction mode, and do the things that you can do today, including my son runs a restaurant. He had to shut it down, and now he just does delivery takeout meals for people in the community, and he's been able to keep his core team and everything with that. So just those lessons of how do you shift and pivot your business model to be of service and contribution to keep it going during these tough times?
Yeah. And have you had to do make some changes to your team, your core team, to your employees, in terms of people that are on staff, people that are being furloughed? We talked about a lot of layoffs and furloughs at the top of the show. Have you guys been impacted with that yet? Or are you?
Yeah, we had to furlough the Delta team, until we see what happens with that. So that was really tough. But the core team, we had to furlough some of our, contract our design team that works on a lot of the creative and packaging, because we're not doing some strategic projects right now.
Right.
But the core team, is there and in place and keeping working on the bigger strategic initiatives. And then, the good news is our stores have been able to operate really well, as has our factories. We actually hired some extra drivers so that in case anybody called in sick, we hired some extra line staff for the plants. We had to go through and make sure that our supply chain, we had to buy up some extra inventory just to make sure we could continue to manufacture goods. And so we worked back with all our vendors to take care of those type of things. So kind of pluses and minuses there in terms of hiring some staff, furloughing some, until we kind of get through the other side.
It's great that you've been able to keep the core team in place. And I know one of the biggest kind of points of difference for you and your team at Performance Kitchen is actually like having people come and experience what you all do, come to your locations, come to the plants, come to see how you bring everything to life. And obviously that's not really possible now with people not traveling and clients not being able to move over or to move across the country to do these types of meetings. So how has that forced you to shift your approach right now?
Really pretty PowerPoint presentations and videos and so that, we're showing what we're doing. So, making sure that even like little simple things like, plant safety, we put out, messages to all our customers about things we're doing at our stores and at our plants to keep our employees and our customers safe, all the different steps that we, go through. We were in the process of getting QA audits done for a new account at our manufacturing facility, and we had to shift at the last moment to a local guy who came in and jumped through some hoops to get him qualified as a person and accepted by the other group. But they were flexible and we were flexible, so we were able to keep things going. And a lot of, as video and conference calls.
Right.
I think that's what our days are filled with as we're all working from home these days. So we've been able to definitely keep things moving, but I think the harder thing is when you work with grocery stores right now, which are so just decimated and trying to take care of their employees and their customers and restock the shelves. Right. You're not going to get any new initiatives in that grocery store probably till late summer if we're lucky.
Right. Yeah.
So Christine, speaking about working from home, how are you and your family doing during this time? Give us a little bit of, paint the picture for us of what's going on at your house.
Well, so, my kids I've only got one left at home. So he's, basically still at University of Victoria, but he's now working from home versus, campus because they closed campus.
Right.
So he's here but my husband and I survived because we have two different home offices.
So separation is key, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is key. We're not fighting over, space. And then I think my little French bulldog is the happiest he's ever been because including right now, he's sitting next to me, on the couch in my office.
Right.
Very happy to have him home this often.
I think couples have been thrust into this whole new realm and whole new environment of like this 24/7 face to face, and people are like fighting more than they ever had, So that's an adjustment too that we don't really think about, but people are having spend a lot more time with their significant others.
Well, see, we're in this, I married my college sweetheart. So we're in this now, 35 years married and 3 years before that. So if we haven't been able to, we've been able to hold it together through thick and thin. So we're in pretty good shape. He does object, however, to my closer supervision of laundry and dishwasher loading, though.
Well, that's awesome, Christine. Well, before we wrap up, I would just love to hear from you about what you feel this post-coronavirus world is going to look like, not just for your business, but also just for consumers, customers in general.
I hope there's a deeper appreciation for our frontline workers in the service trades and retail trades like grocery, apparel, restaurants, hospitality, hotels. I think they've been an unsung hero in the economic landscape for way too long. And so I'd like to see, and I think we can also, what we'll see from this is the devastation that occurs when that sector is hit, because that's really those are the hardest sectors or groups that have been hit in this. And it employs so many people. And, if I could wave magic wands, I would change, for instance, the payroll taxes to be far less for employers and employees at that low, at that spectrum, because it's also, those are the jobs that train our youth on, how to work in their first jobs. And then I'd like to see payroll taxes go farther up the income chain to offset that. And so that employers who employ everybody actually have more of a bottom line to invest more and take up wages. So I think there's some smart ways that we actually could change the system to put more money in the pockets without and encourage more employment for that type of, and reward the employers who really are, I think, the backbone of the country. And so I'd like to see some changes like that dealt with some income inequality, and I think that we're more fair and reasonable to help the economy get back on track. I do think the world of food will forever change, and I think that food is medicine, immunity, health, and it's one of the top Googled words right now. So people are learning and paying more attention to underlying chronic diseases, which escalate your risk in future pandemics. So I think this is going to be a turning point in conversation. And also then those chronic diseases are going to have to get dealt with more aggressively by insurance companies. They're going to have to partner with food companies, healthy diets, in order to change that outcome there as well. So I think the forces are all coming together to change this whole food as medicine, focus on nutrition, which I think will be a huge opportunity for food. And I think you'll start to see that beyond grocery stores into restaurants and in just general health. And it doesn't mean, I'm not anti-ice cream by any way, shape, or form or cookies. I just don't think your main meal should have the equivalent of nutrition of a cookie, Right. So let's and eat our veggies so we can have our cookies and ice cream. Right. So put them. And then I think making veggies delicious is going to be one of the big, things in the future that we pay more attention to. So I'm optimistic on a lot of levels. I do think we can recover economically from what's going on. I think it'll take some time, and I think it'll take some change. But I think we've captured everybody's attention about the risks, and hopefully that will motivate some of the changes we need to make.
Very well said.
Yeah, that's perfect. Christine, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us today and sharing your story. We wish you, your family, and Performance Kitchen the best of luck. And please stay safe and be healthy.
Yep. And we're
you too.
Looking forward to talking to you more soon, Christine. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
You too. Man, it's cool to hear from leaders who've been there and who've done it before. And, Christine got to talk a little bit about her experiences that have helped her. And you can tell the maturity. Something I aspire to have. I'm like off the rails half the time, but she's got that maturity and leadership, and just inspiring to hear from people like that.
Yeah, completely agree. And the interesting thing is we were talking about the, healthy foods sometimes don't taste great, but I can tell you, I've had Performance Kitchen, and their chicken tikka masala is awesome.
Oh, of course. Of course.
But the food is medicine. I mean, I think that's really powerful. Obviously we speak about it all the time with our partners, and if that's the one thing that comes out of all of this, that'll be a great thing.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Cash, the one big thing.
Well, you know what? I mean, I think you hit it.
Yeah.
I think you hit it. I think it is food as medicine. I think that, I feel very grateful that we've been able to work with, our partners on the front lines of that movement for the last 2-3 years. And I really do believe that is going to be one of the silver linings coming out of this crisis, that people are going to look at food much more differently. 50% of this country in America has a chronic disease. We spend over $3 trillion on healthcare, yet we're the most unhealthy country on the planet.
Wake-up call.
Obesity, diabetes, hypertension, all of that that is the epidemic. We're talking about a pandemic. That is the epidemic that this country is dealing with. And I'm hopeful and optimistic that after this, people are going to start caring more about health. I mean, we talked about it with Sean on episode 3 about, people, the hospitality experience is never going to be the same. People are going to expect ways to keep their hands clean. I'm hopeful that people are going to start to be more conscious of what goes in their bodies, the preventative aspect of healthcare, which is what you eat.
Yep.
And it makes you more motivated to do our work on the other side of our ecosystem, the BSB group side, to really drive that food as medicine movement with the right partners.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Another one down, man.
Yep, another one.
Somehow you always work in chicken tikka masala, man. Every conversation, bro. But thank you, bro.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Be Somebody podcast. Please visit us at besomebody.com for all of our audio and video episodes. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all of the other major podcast streaming apps. Thank you. We out.